Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. This week's video, we're going to be doing something that was actually highly requested. I was looking at my comments in a lot of my recent videos, especially the ones that I've made on Life is Strange Reunion, and I saw a lot of people asking me to take a look at some of the gameplay that's been put out. So I sat down, found a video that compiled all of them, I'll have it linked below, and basically here to just give you my thoughts and go through it. Hey, it's Editing Noah here. So I recorded this video in advance because I was going to be out of town for a week. And while editing this, new gameplay has been shown off, featuring Chloe and Max together, using masks to break into one of the buildings. I don't cover it in this video because of, when I recorded it and things like that. So I apologize for that. So this isn't all the gameplay, but this is the vast majority that has been released up until this point. The first scene we see is Max sitting outside near a lake. I'm assuming it's near the snapping turtle. Her basically reflecting on things, and we get some cinematic stuff. It's one of those places where you can sit. It's one of those places in the game where you sit down and Max narrates about what's going on. The first thing right off the bat is I'm really looking forward to seeing Caledon University in the spring. I really liked Caledon University as a setting. That's something that hasn't changed for me. Makes the game feel a little more cozy. I do really enjoy aspects of Double Exposure, don't get me wrong. I know I've denounced my review of it, but there are still things that I like, and the map is one of them. And it seems like the visuals are fairly the same. We're using the same engine, same player models, same lighting engine, things like that. I do hope that some of the graphical issues that I encountered on my playthrough on my PC are fixed. There was an issue where it almost looked like the heads were not fully in sync with the body, and my fix for that was turning down the render resolution a little bit, I believe, or one of the resolutions of the effects or something. I just had to fiddle with that, and eventually it worked. I'm hoping that that's something that can be fixed in this upcoming release because it was really distracting, I can't lie. The next set of footage that we got is a dream sequence for Chloe. In this dream sequence, Chloe is holding hands with Safi and standing under the lighthouse from Life is Strange 1. Max approaches with both a camera and a gun. I believe that it's implied that each of them can only see one of them. So I imagine for Chloe, she can see the camera, and then for Safi, she can see the gun. The camera is not Max's typical Polaroid, which I thought was an interesting choice. It makes me wonder if she'll get her hands on another film camera, or maybe this is just an asset that they put in and they're planning on replacing it for the full release. That is something else. With this footage, I do feel I have to take a bit of it with a grain of salt, simply because it's almost like when you see a trailer for a movie, you don't really know. That's not the final visual effects. That's not the final product. They're still working on it up until release. So it makes me wonder what's going to change and that kind of thing. But the dream sequence is pretty odd, and it makes me wonder about, are we going to see Arcadia Bay at all, considering that we're seeing the lighthouse again? This also made me think that the final choice of the game is going to be choosing between Max and Safi, which didn't make any sense. I feel like as likable and interesting as Safi is, I cannot imagine anybody, whether it's someone like me who sacrificed Chloe, whether it's someone who sacrificed Arcadia Bay for Chloe, like those die-hard fans of her, I can't really imagine anybody choosing Chloe over Safi. So I don't think that is the case. But it was just something interesting that crossed my mind, because there's always some big choice in the end. Next, we see Max preparing to break into a building that's boarded up. There's a sign off to the right that says, "We won't go." I have a few thoughts on this, because later on in this sequence, when Max is inside, we hear a construction worker or security guard or somebody say, "Oh, it's probably those Caledon kids," when they hear about somebody snooping around the building. Now, maybe I'm just overcomplicating things, but it makes me think that we aren't on Caledon University property, that we're off campus currently, and that this is just something that's nearby. It looks like a mansion of sorts, or just a larger home, I guess. Could possibly be one of the former owners, maybe someone else dies, I don't know. It could be the headquarters of the Abraxas Society. That was my first thought. And also when I looked at the trailer, I assumed that the Abraxas Society would be heavily involved, considering we see these weird masks and there's some sort of conspiracy and things like that. Yet, when looking in the background, I don't see the Abraxas Society logo anywhere. There is a triangle, and there are animal skulls, and there's a bird, but it's not the chicken that we see from the Abraxas Society, and as far as I can tell, it's not featured in the background. So does that mean we're going to be getting a whole new underground secret group? I could also see them turning the Abraxas Society into more of just a typical frat/secret society, that they aren't this big conspiracy like the Vortex Club, things like that. And I made a video about the Abraxas Society, and in that I said that the Abraxas Society doesn't need to be the Vortex Club. It needs to be its own thing, but there's no information on it, so it isn't its own thing. It's just kind of there to make you remember the Vortex Club. That's my issue with it. Not that they aren't the Vortex Club or some secret society, it's just that there's nothing really going on over there. Which is why I thought they would be expanded on this one, but it appears that we're getting a different group altogether. Another interesting thing about this sequence is that it appears that Max is working with a student, that being Loretta. Now, Max is not exactly a professor, she is an instructor at this college campus, but for all intents and purposes, she is a professor. And her sneaking around an abandoned building with a student, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. I feel like they only involved her because they realized they didn't really have enough adult friends for Max to do stuff with, because I can't really imagine Moses doing this, and Safi is currently not on campus at this point, so it's like, who else? What, she's gonna drag Amanda into this? Amanda has a business to run and like an actual job. I feel like in Double Exposure, she had a clear boundary with her students. She was friendly with them, and you know, one of the younger instructors, so she was very casual with them and would talk to them if she saw them around campus. I've had instructors and professors who are a little younger and feel comfortable coming up to me when I'm in the library and saying, "Hi, how you doing?" talking to me about shows or whatever it is. But if that same professor came up to me and was like, "Hey Noah, I need you to help me. We're gonna break into a building that's abandoned and we're gonna steal stuff, I guess. You wanna come?" I don't know, I feel like I'd be like, sure, no. I don't know, once again, I'm overthinking it. It's meant to be a little silly. I just thought that was kind of odd. As I mentioned, someone comes by to investigate reports of people snooping around the building and things like that, and Max is able to stop them from entering the room. They think it's just locked up, and they go, "Okay, we're gonna demolish the whole thing, set off the charges." And it appears that one of your first, like, challenges with Max and her powers is you have to disarm bombs so you don't blow up with Loretta. And I don't know, I just think it makes sense. It's not as ridiculous as I'm making it out to be. You just have to be very smart about, you know, you cut the wires, but then if you bump into this thing, it knocks it over and you can't access that charge, things like that. It makes sense, and it's a fun little puzzle, but it isn't as long as something like the train puzzle in Life is Strange 1, for example. But either way, it's just an example of the kinds of interactions and kind of challenges with your powers that you're gonna have to use. But I still think, when you plainly state it, it sounds kind of ridiculous that it's like, Max and Loretta have to disarm the bombs before they explode in the cult's secret basement. Once Max is able to escape this building, which I imagine she'll have to do like a sequence sneaking past the construction workers who were wondering why in the world the building didn't come down when, you know, it was supposed to. And, you know, Loretta probably runs off because we do have some gaps between scenes. I'm not going in perfect order of the compilation video that I referenced. I'm going in as best of an order as I can for the scenes that I see. So technically this happens after some stuff, but Max gets out, you hear sirens off in the distance, and that's when Chloe rolls up, and then the two drive off together. We're gonna go back a little bit to something that chronologically takes place slightly before/during this sequence with Max, and it's seemingly our first introduction to Chloe. So it seems like we will be playing as Chloe before her and Max actually meet up again. And the first scene, kind of awkwardly enough, is a scene with Amanda. Chloe is at the Snapping Turtle thanking Amanda for making her some food and things like that. Apparently there was some sort of event. Lucas is actually in the bar as well and interjects a couple of times during the conversation, which I think is odd, but you know. I wonder if we're gonna get any special dialogue if you were to choose to romance Amanda in Double Exposure. I also wonder, just in general, how Amanda and Max's relationship is going to, you know, sort of continue, because for me, I'm replaying the game right now and I have decided to pursue the Amanda romance option. And, you know, she shuts things down when Safi dies, but then, of course, in the alternate timeline, you can still pursue it. And I just wonder how weird that's going to be, because I would feel bad being like, she said no, but then over here, she's still interested. But if the memories are combined, it's like, well, you didn't respect my no, but also technically I didn't, you know, different circumstance. I just feel like it's going to be very complicated, and I don't know how the developers are going to deal with that, or even if they will touch on it at all. Maybe Amanda would be understanding and be like, hey, look, different circumstances entirely. But either way, I wonder if there's going to be any special dialogue, especially if you, the player, had Max and Chloe in a relationship. Now Chloe's basically back meeting up with her ex, and is currently talking to who her ex is currently seeing and has no idea. Amanda does give her some genuine advice and says something along the lines of, if you feel like you've found someone who is special and that you can rely on, you got to hang on to that, because there's a lot of bad people out there who aren't worth the time of day. I will say, I think now that we've seen more of Chloe and more of her in action, I think there are moments where her character model looks a little off at times. I think it's just the motion and the angles, because there's some sequences where it's seamless and I'm not taken out of it at all. And then there's other moments where she's talking and I'm kind of like, why am I feeling weird about you? And I think it just comes down to some of the motion capture, and that is something that can be ironed out, you know, as development goes. Like I said, we got to treat this like this is not the final version of the game. And I'm sure they're still showing us the more polished sections of the game, but even then, I mean, I'm sure there are tweaks that are going to be made, so I don't think it's that big of a concern. Like I said, graphically the game looks good. I still think True Colors had the perfect balance of like the drawing and photorealistic characters and animations. You know what I mean? But that's just me. Then this new character, a security guard around campus, comes up to Chloe and tries to kick her out, and this kicks off our first set of backtalk, which backtalk looks normal, looks good, sounds good, especially having Rihanna back in the role, and that's coming from someone who loves Before the Storm, as you guys know. So now we're back to Max and Chloe reuniting. Now, this is the longest pure, unbroken set of gameplay that we get, and it also demonstrates, you know, a couple different things that we can expect throughout the game. This takes place the next day at Max's house, which I'm glad Chloe comments that Max has an amazing house, because even back in Double Exposure, I was like, oh my god, you're earning this on like, you know, a part-time professor salary? Are you kidding me? Like, it's a really nice, what does Chloe say? She calls it like the fanciest log cabin ever. I'm not sure how the variations in Max's reaction to Chloe returning will be, depending on whether or not you were in a relationship with her, whether or not you were sacrificing her or Arcadia Bay, things like that. The gameplay that we see is from a playthrough in which Arcadia Bay was sacrificed, Chloe was saved, and the two of them dated and then eventually broke up. It's kind of cute to have Max want to make Chloe comfortable and like set up breakfast and make her coffee and do all these things. And I like the little intercut of, you know, the more mundane moments from the previous night, just simply coming back, catching up a little bit, and then going to sleep. I totally understand why they don't want to immediately have a super serious conversation right after everything that's happened. I also like the detail of Max having an agent and talking about her photography career. That's something that wasn't really touched on in a lot of detail in Double Exposure, and it's something I'm curious about, especially as someone who likes to document these characters and talk about, like, in this year they were here and then they did this and blah blah blah, you know. Switching between characters is going to be something that's very interesting, because to my memory I can't really think of a narrative game where you technically would play both sides of the super important relationship. Like, of course, in Detroit Become Human, you play multiple different characters. In Heavy Rain, you play multiple different characters. But in this one, you know, you can really kind of make them do whatever you'd like. If you'd like to see them get back together, you can probably go that route. If you'd like to see, you know, Chloe be heartbroken, I guess you could also go that route. It's very interesting to me how they're going to have to railroad the player at times to make sure that, you know, the story goes as planned and they play within the guidelines of this story while having control of the two most important characters. And honestly, I think one of the ways they balance the two of them is actually really interesting and pretty cool. In certain conversations, when both of them are talking and dialogue options come up, you'll get an indicator of who you are choosing for in that moment. And I think that's great because it allows you to kind of go back and forth between them. And I think it helps these conversations flow because in a game like Life is Strange, Telltale games, things like that, the characters you play as aren't very blank slates. Like, yes, you can play them in different ways and have different attitudes with them, but overall, I think we can all agree on the kind of person that Max is, that the kind of person that Chloe is. It's not like something like Fallout where you can play a super evil character who has a soft spot for, I don't know, animals, but then they hate this faction. Like, there's so much more projection of yourself onto characters in games like Fallout, Baldur's Gate, Skyrim, Oblivion, than there is in story-based games like this. So I think having that flow in the conversations works well because I think if they handle it well, there won't be many or any moments where you're like, well, that's not what my Max would say, because I feel like most Maxes overall are similar. Not to mention they have the data and the choices from the previous games of, I did this, I dated Chloe, I didn't do that, that kind of thing. Now, maybe that's putting a little too much faith into them. We'll just have to see. I do think it's very interesting that Safi is in Chloe's visions and she hasn't even met her. I had a really stupid thought that I immediately shot down because it would make no sense, and if it was the case, I think I would just about, like, I'd have to make a rant video. But I had the idea that, well, maybe, I don't know, Safi is somehow shape-shifting as Chloe and this is some long-term game for her, but it doesn't really make much sense. It's not, I have no basis for that theory. It was just a thought because Chloe begins talking about these dream sequences where Safi is there, and the other weird thing is her memories being, you know, combined because, you know, we have the merging of the two timelines because of Safi and things like that. But I'm a little confused on how Chloe fits into all of this. The thing is, Chloe is confused by the mention that Arcadia Bay has been destroyed. And she's like, what do you mean my mom is dead? No, I just had coffee with her last week. And while yes, you know, Arcadia Bay should be back because the timelines have merged, and that means that for people who decided to sacrifice Chloe, Arcadia Bay never left, that kind of thing. Chloe should still have the memory of, you know, standing by the lighthouse, watching the town get destroyed as her and Max embrace because Max is refusing to let her go. Like, would she just forget that? I'm kind of confused about that because the way I saw it was that the memories compounded. It was conflicting memories of two different timelines where you did two different actions and two different things happened. It was a merging of the different timelines, not a creation of like a whole new one. I just don't, maybe I'm overlooking something, maybe I'm a little confused, but it just seems kind of odd that Chloe wouldn't remember that. I would understand Chloe not remembering being shot per se, in the timeline where Max sacrifices her for Arcadia Bay. Like, Chloe comes back and is like, I have visions of, you know, being shot in the bathroom and Nathan Prescott and all these things. And Max has to be like, well, it's because I sacrificed you to save the town because you asked me to. That makes sense. That confusion makes sense because she wouldn't have lived in that timeline, so she'd have no memory from that timeline up until the shooting, let's say. But in the timeline where she survives, she would absolutely remember standing there on the hill watching the town be destroyed, and especially if they dated like they do in this gameplay, you know, her and Chloe kiss at that moment, and then they drive off together through the wreckage, and that's what starts their journey together that eventually ends in them breaking up. I just don't understand how Chloe seems to be living in this perfect world, almost like, you know, one of the comic book variations, where Arcadia Bay is fine and Chloe is also fine, and all these people are just fine and alive and okay. I'm curious if that will be addressed, but it seems like a major plot hole issue to me. I don't know. Later in the sequence, the security guard comes by. We have a great moment of comedy between Max and Chloe, where Chloe's trying to get Max not to answer the door, and Max is like, what do you mean? We're not teenagers or whatever. And, you know, it's a great bit of comedy, and that is one of the moments where I wrote down in my notes, I was just like, this is great to have them back. Like, the chemistry is here. I think it works well, and I'm just like, admittedly, the vibes are on, and it's fun to see them. It's just everything else it's surrounded by is kind of a little odd. Like, I don't think this is the way to do it. After that, the two discuss their breakup, which I imagine in other timelines, other variations would just be, well, why would you sacrifice me? Blah, 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 things like that. But in this version, because Max was broken up with by Chloe and was left by Chloe, Max is asking, you know, why they broke up. And the options make sense for Chloe's character. Chloe can go through all the different reasons, and I think it displays the differences in her and how she's grown over time. Like, the first option is, well, it doesn't matter, and I feel like that's a very immature, old way of thinking Chloe. And then you've got, you know, blaming her powers, saying that it was something that hung over their relationship, and even though she knows she didn't rewind during the relationship, which is once again implied because Max talks about, you know, stopping using it and then kind of eventually realizing she's lost it. But it makes sense that that would be something hanging over their relationship. And then we get into more of the mature things that Chloe has said, and that shows that, once again, the writers in Double Exposure and Reunion understand how to have these characters grow. Max acts differently, but she's grown in a realistic way, and that's something I fully agree with that I said in my original Double Exposure review. And I think they're doing the same here with Chloe very well, because Chloe openly says, look, we were growing apart. There were things that were changing in our lives. Whereas I feel like younger, immature Chloe would have just become jealous and angry and upset and tried to make Max change, honestly. So for her to openly admit, like, look, we were growing apart. You had these great things in the art world, and I had these things in the music world, and it just wasn't working. I think that's a very mature and a sign of growth in the character that is a realistic path for her. I'm glad she's been able to continue her journey since the first game, you know, with her being alive in that other timeline. Her final reason is talking about the trauma, which is something that I have been saying from the beginning, that, you know, the reason behind the breakup really, in my opinion, would come down to the fact that there's so much trauma there, that Max refused Chloe's request to save the town, and they had to watch it just become, you know, a wasteland right in front of them, and then they just go off together. And I feel like the trauma reasoning is the one that makes the most sense to me, and, you know, granted, that's coming from someone who still fully believes that Chloe will always be in love with Rachel and has never truly gotten over her, and that her and Max's romance is not, you know, the best thing in the world. I think their story is about two friends reuniting, and Rachel kind of serves as, you know, the ghost in the narrative, Chloe's love that will never ever be matched. I think that's a big part of it. But either way, I think if you do like them together, I think having them initially break up because of the trauma and the other reasons makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that now, with the growth that both of them have gone through, them dating in the end would actually make a lot more sense and be a lot more rewarding now with all the years that have passed. And I might actually go that route in my playthrough, which I know, shocking, the guy who's always like, well, Chloe's still in love with Rachel. Yeah, sure, at that time she was, but, you know, we'll see how she's written. She's clearly grown as a character, and the writers are aware of that. But even then, those reasons for the breakup kind of contradict, once again, this idea that Chloe seemingly doesn't remember that Arcadia Bay has been destroyed, because she mentions the trauma of everything that happened. And I feel like the storm is just so tied in with that. You can't have, you know, Jefferson, Nathan, Rachel, all of those things happening, and then just conveniently leave out the storm that was the whole reason for you two leaving Arcadia Bay. It's just like, I just think that's such a weird thing to gloss over. I don't really understand that. Maybe I'm completely missing something. Maybe I'm missing a piece of dialogue. I just think it's kind of odd for them to make that decision rather than just having Chloe also be equally as astonished as Max and be like, Arcadia Bay is back, Max. I saw my mom for the first time in years. I don't know how this is possible. I think that would have worked just as well rather than Max being the only one who's survived when they've been living on the road and their relationship has been deeply affected by the trauma of the town being destroyed. I don't know, maybe it's just me. My overall consensus on the gameplay is that the vibes are on. I think it'll be a fun experience, similar to how Double Exposure was a good experience. It was a game that was good and had good acting, it had good visuals. I think that similarly, when you try to look a step deeper, a layer deeper, it's gonna fall apart. So we'll see. I really want to be proven wrong because I love this series. I've built a community around this series, and yeah, I've been expanding out. I'm making fewer and fewer Life is Strange videos as time goes on because I do want to expand. I still love this series, and I still have a deep connection with this series. So I don't know. We'll see. Let me know if I missed anything because maybe I did. And, you know, I'm very open to admitting my mistakes on this channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you thought down below. And I hope you have a good morning or evening or, you know, whatever.